Let's get out our watercolors and make some Christmas cards. It is coming into that holiday season, folks, and I am super here for it this year. I am really feeling that holiday spirit in my soul, and we're going to have a nice little slice of the holiday spirit today because we are going to be making Christmas cards. And I have 5 fun designs for you to try out. I have a bunch of my favorite techniques that I'm going to be using. They range anywhere between beginner to intermediate, maybe a little advanced. If they feel advanced, though, I really do promise you, you can do it. Even if it's just your own version of the card and it looks different than mine, that's fine too. It is all about just playing with one of our favorite mediums, getting in the holiday spirit, and just trying some really fun Christmassy designs. So let's just hop into it. Okay, so before we get started, let's go over some of the materials that I will be using along with my watercolors. So I have here my watercolor tin of M-gram watercolors. You can use any watercolors you have on hand. They don't have to be expensive. I just hadn't used those in a while, so I wanted to. Then I have a cheap brand of shimmering watercolors. You don't have to have the same brand as me, and if you don't have any iridescent watercolors, it's not 100% necessary. You can get by without these. For the surface, I am going to be using some of these Strathmore watercolor cards and some of their mixed media cards. Either of these will work fine for the techniques that we're using, though I do recommend the watercolor cards more for the wet and to wet techniques. If you don't have these, you can make your own out of your favorite watercolor paper or whatever heavy paper you have that can handle a lot of water. I have some masking fluid here to mask out some highlights. Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, but white gel pen or gouache would work as well. Then I have some various markers here. I have just an alcohol marker, a green one with a chisel nib, because it's waterproof. And then I have a Pigma Micron graphic pen. And I have a couple oil-based pens here. They're metallic, but if you don't have these, you could use acrylic markers or even colored pencils. A circle stencil. Again, you could use a random circle object in your house, some Morton salt for special effects, and some isopropyl alcohol for some special effects, as well as some art tape. You will also see me using some paper towels and a colored mechanical pencil. Now, let's go on to our first subject. This is going to be a fun Christmas light piece. And I'm starting off working wet into wet, and I'm just taking various colors and putting blobs all over the paper. This is mainly going to serve as a background. Later on, I do come in and I lighten these up a little bit. They're a little bit too pigmented. I want them to fall in behind because I want them to feel like blurred out shimmering lights behind what is going to be the subject here. So I am just kind of swirling things around in little water drops. I just dropped in some clean water and then I dropped my paint into it, and then I'm coming in with some paper towel and lifting it out. Just want a slight ghosting. Nice blurry, nothing really discernible, just a little bit of color splotches. Then I'm going to come in with my alcohol marker and my chisel nib, and I'm going to put lines all over this, some swirly lines, just going in and out of the picture plane. And this is going to serve as our cord. So then I'm going to add some little squares in and color those in. And I'm going to come through and draw out some upside down teardrop shapes that are just slightly rounded over on top of those squares. And those are going to serve as our light bulbs for our strands of Christmas lights. Then I'm going to come in with various colors. I like a good colorful string of Christmas lights. I like to have all the colors in there, but feel free to put any colors you want. You could also change the color of the cord. And again, if you didn't have an alcohol marker to use, you could use a colored pencil or any other colored drawing implement that you have. I prefer the alcohol marker because I knew that it wasn't going to move when I added water. So I'm going through with each of these little light bulbs and I'm putting the highest concentration of color around the edge of the light bulb, and I'm lifting it out in the middle so it feels like it's illuminated from the inside of the light bulb. Then I'm coming through with a really, really watery mixture and doing a halo around in the same color as the light bulb on the outside to kind of give it that feeling of the light shining out. And I'm doing that for each of these bulbs. They're not going to be too neat at this point. I'm really, really wishy-washy. And I'm going to come through with some line work later and clean it up because I wanted this to be a little bit more on the illustrative side. But I find that this is a really fun and easy way. You keep it dark on the outside of the bulb, lighten it up on the inside, and it looks like it's illuminated from the inside. And then you have that reflective, colorful light on the outside shining through. Now I'm waiting for my paint to dry, and then I'm going to come through with my Pigma Micron. This is a 1, it's the graphic, so it's a little bit thicker. You can use any fine liner that you have, or again, if you don't have fine liners, feel free to use colored pencil or even ballpoint pen if that's all that you have on hand. Almost every kind of supply that I have in this could be substituted with something else, so if you don't have the exact supplies I do, don't feel like you can't do these projects, just use whatever you have on hand. This is just meant to be fun and festive and creative, so we're not looking for perfection here, we're just looking for a handmade, festive good time. So whatever supplies you have is perfectly fine. Then I'm going to come through with my bleed-proof white. Again, if you have a white gel pen, a white colored pencil, or some white gouache, you can use that as well. I like the bleed-proof white because it doesn't soak up as much color as some of the other, like a white gouache might soak up some of the colors. But anything that you have for a white highlight will work, even an acrylic marker if you have a Posca or something like that. Then I'm coming through and just cleaning things up. I'm adding a little bit more color in between those spaces of white, and just making sure that my lines are all cleaned up. But this one was super fun and super simple. I think that anybody can do it, and I would love to see what you come up with if you do a variation of this design. Here it is. Oh, I love it. It's so fun and festive. Okay, the next one is going to be ornaments. Now this one's going to be fairly simple as well. I have here my template so I can just draw circles easily. But again, if you don't have any sort of stencil, feel free to just grab a coffee mug or around your tape or something and use that to draw out your circles, or just freehand them. Now, I used this stencil, but full disclosure, my circles are still not going to be perfect at the end. We're not going for perfection. We just want to play with our colors and have a good time. Now, after I have my Christmas bulbs drawn out, I put a little square at the top to represent the little lid, and then I just have a straight string going up to the top. Then I wet each bulb individually, and I'm just dropping in colors. I'm not going for any specific design here. With the purple one, you may see it has like this fun mottled texture. I wet it, and then I came in with my color, and then I dropped in some rubbing alcohol, and that's what created those fun little cells. Now for this multicolored one, I just wet the whole thing, and I came in with some paint and dropped individual colors, and that's the design that came up with. And the same with this red and blue one, I just played around with mixing the colors. Then I decided that the white's a little bit too plain, so I'm kind of doing a little bit of that ghosting like I did in the Christmas light one. Now, for the branches, I am just taking some green and I'm doing a flicking motion up towards the top of the page just to make it look like those are some pine boughs, and then I'm adding some red little dots to create some more interest. I am going to be using some of my shimmery paint on this one. You don't need to if you don't have any iridescent paint. You could use a metallic marker or colored pencil, or just regular watercolors if you wanted to. But once I have the pine boughs laid in, I'm going to come through and use some gold paint to paint the caps on my bulbs and then put in a nice shimmery string. Now that my bulbs have dried a little bit more, I'm coming in to add some shading, and in order to do that, again, I want these to look round. I'm using a similar technique as what I did with the Christmas lights, and I'm just going around the edges with a darker version of the main color that I used in the Christmas bulbs. And as you see, it just is like this nice faux shading. It makes it look a little bit more rounded and three-dimensional by leaving the middle a little bit lighter and the edges a little bit darker. Now this one was fun because I came in with multicolors around the edges as well. That's my favorite. I almost wish I had done all of them with that multicolor design. I just love that so much. Now I'm coming in with my bleed-proof white. Some of these are still a little bit wet, which is fine because while it's wet, the color will mix with the bleed-proof white a little bit and give it kind of more of a milky look. And then later on, once that dries, I'll come in with some more bleed-proof white to get my higher highlights. Now I'm taking some of the gold iridescent paint and I'm just splattering it around the edges of the page because I just want to give it a nice fun shimmery vignette. And I just used a stiff bristled brush for that. A toothbrush also works. I will be using one of those later on. But for everything else, I'm using mainly synthetic Taklon brushes, but I like a good bristle for splattering. Then I'm coming back through with my fine liner, and I'm going around the edges lightly just to clean those edges of the bulb up and add a little bit more darkness around the edge to bring them forward a little bit better and make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. And again, this is best to do once it is dry. The Pigma Micron pens are waterproof, but it is better if the page is already dry when you come in to draw with it. Now I decided I'm going to add a little bit of writing. I am not great with hand lettering, but I brought in my shimmering gold oil-based marker. Again, any marker will do, or a colored pencil, or any type of pen you have. And I added the word Noel because I just think that's super pretty. I came in and refined my final highlights. And then I added some shimmering colors to each bulb in the color that matches to give it some shimmer. Okay, so our next design is a wrapped Christmas gift. Now for this one, I took my painter's tape, it's a low-tack tape, and I put one horizontally down the middle and vertically down the middle. Now, this is going to represent our ribbon. At this point, if you want to do a bow, I'm going to be using darker colors for my ribbon, so I didn't bother putting this in. But if you wanted to do a bow shape in the middle, you may want to also mask that off with some tape or some masking fluid so that you can keep your bow nice and clean if you are using a lighter color for your bow. But right now I am working on the actual wrapping paper part, and you can do whatever design you want. I'm doing a fun vintage candy stripe for mine, but you could do polka dots, you could do snowflakes, anything that you want, and that tape is going to be there to protect where your ribbon is, and it's going to keep nice straight lines for you, so you can get as messy as you want during this phase. Now, I didn't like how stark white my white stripes were, so I did come through and get it a little bit messy and pull some of the color in from my red stripes to give it that nice vintage look. I am using I think it's a phthalo green to do my ribbon. So I've peeled up my tape and I am painting in those areas, and I am putting my dark color in there. And then I'm going to just paint my bow right over the wrapping paper because, again, I knew I was going to be using this dark green color, so I wasn't worried about it. I didn't mask it out. This is fairly simple. It is such a quick and easy design, and it's so much fun. Then I'm bringing in my bleed-proof white to create the highlights on my ribbon. I've also put in some dark areas to represent the shadows in the ribbon as well, so that it has that fun velvety shimmer that you would expect from a Christmas ribbon. Then I'm going to come through and I'm going to clean up all my edges and my stripes and continue to put in a little bit more of the shadows and the highlights, and just getting it to where I want it to be. But this was a fun, quick, and easy way to do it. Again, you can decide on what design you want, but it's just a fun, festive design, and I'm really excited with how that bow came out. My stripes were a little bit wonky, but that's okay. It was so much fun, and we've got that beautiful, vintagey, handmade look that I was going for, so I'm not too sad about it. Though that white did feel still a little bit more stark to me, so I do decide to bring a little bit of the green in the white so that it matches the bow a little bit better. And I will come through with my bleed-proof white to clean up my stripes a little bit more as well. But again, if you have a different design for your wrapping paper, you'll have to do whatever you need to do to clean up your edges if you have polka dots or anything like that. But I had a lot of fun with this, and I love the classic Christmas colors I chose, but it could go with any color scheme. So if you decide to do this design, let me know what kind of design you decide for your wrapping paper, and yeah, tag me on social media so I can see it. Super fun. Now we're going to get into some more like special effects when it comes to our watercolors. I have used some thinner washi tape to go down the middle, and this time I've taped the edges of my card as well. I didn't tape the edges of my card for the Christmas gift because I didn't want a frame around that, but I do want a frame around this. So I've taped the card completely down, and I've gone right down the middle both ways again with a cross with some thinner tape. Now I've started off with these rings of color up at the top, and those are going to represent Christmas lights outside of our window. So I'm going to let those little rings dry, leave them white in the middle. Now coming in with a wet wash with some phthalo blues and greens, and I've got those little trees down there with no detail. I want them to be blurry, just the impression of trees. And now I've sprinkled in some salt. Now what salt will do is it's going to absorb some of that watercolor. Now I had way too much water down. I'm still experimenting with this technique. I had a little bit too much water down, so I did lift it up. But as you can see, salt will absorb the color and it will leave these nice crystallized little designs in your artwork. So you're gonna sprinkle your salt on, let it dry completely, let it absorb all that watercolor. Once it's dry, you flake it off, and then you can come through and refine. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm adding a little bit more salt. I want to get a little bit more of that design. But this creates a beautiful frost look. So that's what I did. And then I painted around it and darkened the areas around it. Now I'm coming back to my Christmas lights and I'm doing upside down teardrop shapes this time. Again, I am just going to leave the middle of my lights white to show that they're illuminated from the inside. And this is just a very quick and easy way to give the impression of Christmas lights. Again, not going for perfection. We just want to get that Christmas feel. And then I'll be going back and forth in my sky colors and darkening some things up. I'm coming through with a thinner brush and putting in the lines to my Christmas lights. And then I'm going to come through and I'm going to look at the designs that I got from the salt. And I'm looking for the lightest areas. I'm going to add a little bit of white caps on them with my bleed proof white. This is mainly to bring out some of those designs and give it more of a frosty look and some more opacity to the look, so it looks like it's on the window and the design or the landscape is behind it. And I'm doing a lot of this around the edges of my window panes and around just the overall edge. And I'm actually going to dry brush some of that on the very, very edges of the window to give it that nice cold look. You know, when you come home on a cold day and your house starts to warm up, but the middle of the windows start to thaw first, that's kind of the look that I'm going for here. Warm inside, cold outside. And I also added some dry brush streaks in there to kind of give it a reflective look. Now, I want to go for more of a vintagey log cabin look, so now that I've peeled up my washi tape, which by the way came from my good friend Sarah at So Craftastic. I will link her shop below, but anyways, I digress. I've peeled up my washi tape and I'm coming through and I am painting the wooden part to my window. Now, I wanted to do a nice vintagey, again, almost like a log cabin-y look, so I'm going for a natural dark wood kind of look. But I'm leaving some lighter areas so that I can have some of those Christmas light colors reflecting off of the wood. And you see that there. I'm just kind of leaving it lighter and then I'm dropping in that color. I'm not getting too crazy about it. I'm just looking for the impression. And then I'm coming through with a little less water and putting some streaks in there to represent wood grain. Then once that has dried a little bit more, I'm taking the tape off the edges and I'm doing the edge of the window with the same dark colors. And this dark color is really going to bring out the landscape a little bit more. It's a good contrast between the Christmas lights and the blues and greens that I used in the landscape. Now, you can put anything you want outside your window. I'm a tree girl, so I really wanted to have those pine trees out there, but you could do a snowman, you could do a deer. There's so many things that you could do to make it look like you're looking out the window at winter time. And I wanted it to feel like nighttime, and I think that I achieved that. And I'm really happy with the way the frost came out too, even though I'm still getting used to the water to salt ratio. You know, we're all we're all learning every time we create a piece of art. And then I'm adding some of that color to the edges of the window on the outside framing work as well. And then I'm just going to come through like before and I'm cleaning up my edges. I'm straightening some things out, defining some of the wood grain a little bit. And I will also come in with a little bit of white on the wood grain as well to bring it together and kind of make it a little bit more cohesive with the frost. And that is our frosty window Winter Wonderland Christmas card. Now, I didn't leave a lot of room for writing on most of these because I'm not really into hand lettering, but there are ways that you can incorporate writing in the window panes if you feel the need to. Okay, we are on to our last design, and this might be my favorite of all because you all know I'm a landscape girly. I'm going to be using a lot of water in this, so I taped down all the edges of my card. And then I came through and I sketched out some fir trees. Now, if you're somebody who doesn't want to sketch out trees, you can probably find a stamp that looks like a fir tree, you know, the classic Christmas tree shape, and use that instead. And then I'm coming through with some masking fluid to mask off the branches that I want to be snowy. Now, if you don't have masking fluid, you can paint around those branches instead, or you can come through with whatever white you've been using for the other cards and paint them in later. Now I'm going to start off with my sky. I'm working wet into wet in the sky, and I am using diagonal strokes of color. I've got some phthalo blues and some purples, and I am just streaking them across the sky. Then I'm bringing in some rubbing alcohol, and I am splattering it with a toothbrush to get some special effects. And this, as you can see, makes the paint disperse away from where I have splattered the rubbing alcohol, which is a great way to get some fun granulation in your paints if you don't already have highly granulating paints or you just want some special effects. I'm coming in with my paints wet into wet, and I'm letting those background trees kind of spur out into that sky because I want them to recede into the background. And then I'm coming back in again with my wishy-washy strokes. I'm going diagonal again because I want that movement in the sky, and I'm adding that purple because I want it to look like the Northern Lights. And I lift out in areas where I want it to be brighter too because I want it to really be brought out. Now, I left the snow pretty dry. I'm working mostly wet into dry there, and I'm coming through with shadows in the corner, but then I'm also dragging down some shadows that are in the sky color coming from where those trees are going to be. And then I'm going to come through with a nice phthalo green, and I am going to lay in my foreground pine trees. Or fir trees, actually. I keep saying pines, but they're actually fir trees. These are more like a blue spruce, I would think, technically. I don't know, honestly, because I'm not working from a reference. This is my imagination. I can call them Shanna trees, because I'm just making this up as I go along. But anyway, so I'm coming through with these nice Christmassy trees. And then for this one, I added a little bit more of a dark color because I want this to have the highest contrast. This is going to be our main tree, so I think I threw in maybe like a little bit of Payne's gray along with my green. And I'm painting right over where that masking fluid is. And then I came through and added a little bit of granulation by, again, splattering some rubbing alcohol. And you don't necessarily need to have rubbing alcohol to do this. You could splatter some water. That will give you some granulation as well. But I just like the way the rubbing alcohol mixes with the paint. Now, when I remove the masking fluid, I knew that there was going to be some of that color from the tree that would smear in with it, and I'm perfectly fine with that because I want the snow, I don't need it to be stark white. This is a night scene. I want some of the colors of the sky on the snow on the branches, and I want some of the colors of the branches on there just to kind of imply shadows within those snowy areas on the branches. So if you're removing your masking fluid and it's smearing, don't get too upset, especially if you do have the bleed-proof white or a white gouache or even a gel pen, because we're going to incorporate that for the highest highlights in just a little while. So I'm going to come in with, again, my bleed-proof white, and I'm going towards the tips of the branches to brighten those up. So we're keeping those shadowy areas inside the tree, and then the parts that are coming out closer to the sky that might get some reflections from those northern lights, those are going to be our highest highlights. Now I'm doing that on each of the trees. Again, the main tree is going to have a little bit more of a stark contrast than the other two trees because that's more the focal point as far as the trees go. And I will be coming in again with some of the sky colors to bring down that white a little bit. Now, I'm going to come through and do some horizontal streaks with my sky colors. And I'm not getting too crazy about this, but I'm just kind of etching in a little stream. So I'm using all the sky colors for the reflection. I have a little bit of that purple, and then I'm going into my blue. It's like a nice little tie-dye feeling. And I'm lifting out in the middle because I want that to be a little reflective. Then I'm going to take some of my sky colors and some of my tree colors, and I'm going to take my brush straight down from where those trees are on the edges of our stream to imply reflections of those trees. And it's a really quick and easy way to put in a stream. Look how quick that was. I mean, it looks much quicker now because it's sped up, but I assure you it didn't take that long to get that effect. You just put down lighter sky colors and you come through with darker sky colors straight down. And then you do the bleed-proof white in horizontal streaks to represent, you know, where the water meets the edges. And then I came through with my bleed-proof white and my trusty toothbrush, and I splattered some snow all over that. Now, once I lifted the tape off the edges, because I did want a frame on this one, and I knew it was going to be really a lot of paint, so I had to tape the edges, I decided I wanted a nice border, and I am going to be taking my silver oil-based marker and creating a beautiful border for that. And that is our snowy landscape with the northern lights and a stream. So let's recap. We have our fun and funky little Christmas lights here. Then we came in and went straight to the Christmas tree and decided to create some baubles or Christmas bulbs using wet and wet techniques and some glittery paint. And what is Christmas without a beautifully wrapped Christmas present? Nice vintagey style Christmas bow. And Who doesn't love a nice frosted window on a cold winter's night when you're nice and warm in your bedroom, looking out, thinking of Christmas magic? And then, of course, this is what I picture the North Pole to look like, with the northern lights, the beautiful trees, the lovely stream, and all the beautiful snow. Let me know what your favorite is, and if you do decide to create any of these, please let me know. I'd love to see your versions. They don't have to look like mine, but I do hope that I have inspired you to create some Christmas magic. So feel free to tag me on social media at CautionArtistAtPlay. I look forward to seeing your designs. Okay, folks, I really hope that you enjoyed this video and you enjoyed creating some of these Christmas cards. If you decided to do any of these designs yourself, please let me know. Contact me on social media, tag me on Instagram, and show me your designs. I would love to see what version you did for your own Christmas cards. I love the fact that we can all do something from the same idea, but come up with different kinds of designs. And so please let me know if I've inspired you and show me your designs. I want to see all the holiday bliss artwork on social media. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. You have a fantastic day. Bye.